Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and same song, different verse. Uh, because, of course, we're going to see some liberal federal judge decide that the president cannot do anything at all without the approval of people who hate him. Exclusive new training document for asylum screenings reflects tougher U.S. stance. New York and San Francisco from Reuters. The Trump administration has revised training guidelines for asylum officers in ways that could make it harder for migrants seeking refuge in the United States to pass an initial screening. First of all, they're not migrants. They are illegal aliens. They are invaders. We have almost no one coming to the door and knocking. They're not going to our embassies, our consulates, or coming to an approved border crossing location. They're coming into the country illegally, and when caught, are screaming, "Asylum, asylum, asylum," as if that's a magical spell to negate all of our laws. The revisions to a lesson plan used by hundreds of asylum officers suggest the Trump administration is finding new ways to narrow who can access asylum, as border policy proposals with that same goal have been blocked by federal courts, said former government officials and immigration experts who reviewed the internal plan that was shared with Reuters. The changes could potentially lead to more denials and deportations of migrants. They're not migrants if they're being deported, they're illegal aliens. Quit letting David Hogg run your editorial board and demanding you not refer to criminals who break our immigration laws as such. Before their full cases can be heard, they said. Jessica Collins, a spokeswoman for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, which oversees asylum applications, said the agency periodically updates its training documents and that it processes all claims on a case-by-case basis. The lesson plan has been revised in 2006, 2014, and February of 2017. The new version, dated April 30th, goes into effect this month, USCIS said. The ballooning number of mostly Central American families turning themselves into border agents and asking for asylum has pushed U.S. border agencies to a breaking point. In March, more than 100,000 people were caught at the U.S.-Mexico border, the highest monthly level in more than a decade. U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed the migrants are exploiting loopholes in immigration law and says many asylum claims are fraudulent. The first step in the long U.S. asylum process is an interview by a USCIS official, specially trained in asylum and refugee law, to determine whether a migrant, illegal alien, has a credible fear of returning to their home country. If they pass that first hurdle, a low bar, they go on to an immigration court where a judge can grant them asylum if they prove they have been persecuted because of their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Around three-quarters of the thousands of monthly applicants regularly pass the first credible fear interviews, according to government data. But most Central Americans fleeing general violence and corruption ultimately do not qualify for asylum. Trump has repeatedly said that the standards for entry into the U.S. are too lenient. They are. The revised lesson plan is a significant and disturbing step toward making it more difficult to pass credible fear interviews, said Victoria Nielsen, who worked in the USCIS Refugee and Asylum Division during the Obama administration. The new plan deletes a paragraph from the previous guidance that told credible fear interviewers to consider that asylum seekers may not have all the evidence to prove their claims when they first arrive in the U.S. Guidance to consider trauma and cultural background when assessing credibility has also been deleted. Instructions to be warier of fraud were inserted. Stephen Legonsky, a former U.S. CIS chief counsel, said that asylum seekers who arrive in the U.S. without documents to prove their persecution back home have to rely on their own testimony. Without taking cultural and psychological factors into account, evaluating the person's credibility becomes nearly impossible, Legonsky said. USCIS Collins said the agency's officers take into account relevant country conditions and information and adhere to all applicable laws, regulations, policies, and precedent decisions. Currently, asylum officers are required to complete weeks of in-person training followed by regular ongoing refresher courses. The White House is seeking $23 million of funding to train Border Patrol agents to perform credible fear interviews that are usually done by specialized USCIS asylum officers. It was not clear whether or not this new lesson plan would be used to train Border Patrol agents. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which oversees the Border Patrol, referred questions about its agents conducting interviews to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which did not respond to a request for comment. An April 29th White House memo said agencies should reprioritize immigration officials to do credible fear screenings without specifically mentioning Border Patrol. Migrants who pass the initial credible fear interview are often allowed to stay in the U.S. until their asylum cases are decided, a process that can take months or years because of a massive backlog of immigration court cases. The Trump administration has said people are gaming the legal system in order to stay in the country. At a rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan on March 29th, Trump called the asylum process a big, fat con job. You have people coming up, they're all met by the lawyers, he said. And they say the following phrase, I'm very afraid for my life. And then I look at the guy, and he looks like he's just going out of the ring. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Under a new Trump policy started in January, hundreds of asylum seekers have been forced to return to wait in Mexico while their cases lumber through U.S. courts. That policy is being challenged by lawsuits. Trump has promised to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, but a physical barrier would have little effect on migrants who turn themselves in to officials. By changing the rules for asylum screenings, the government is erecting an invisible wall for those seeking protection, said Dre Calopi, an immigration attorney at Washington, D.C. based law firm. According to this, the story was refiled to fix a typo in the penultimate paragraph. I don't know what typo it was, I just found this. But here's the thing. We are seeing record numbers of people arriving at the border or crossing illegally and literally just saying, I'm in fear for my life, asylum, I need asylum, as if it's a magical phrase that negates everything against them and mandates that they just be ushered into our country. The backlog at the immigration court is because we have for years just let them into the country and we don't require any tracking or any check-ins or anything. If they miss their court date, they're gone. We almost never find them. So these people are being told, all you have to do is get a court date. You don't show up, we can't find you, you're here. And they are illegal aliens all over our country doing that because of these lawyers who go to the border and tell them, specifically say, I am in fear for my life. Being unable to find the job you want is not a reason for asylum. Living in a poor country is not a reason for asylum. I do feel bad for people who have difficulties providing for their families, but I see one of those every day in the mirror when I shave and brush my teeth. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life the world over. Right now, there are countries in Central and South America where it is extremely hard for a large population of people, but that is not a reason to claim asylum. These people have been traipsing through Mexico after crossing the Guatemala-Mexican border illegally, offered humanitarian visas allowing them to stay in Mexico and work. Some of them, I believe, were indefinite, but many of them were for 1 or 2 years, and they refused them. They literally said, no, I don't want to work. I don't want you to give me a job and let me stay and have a life for my family. I want to go to the United States. Why? Because for years, people have been telling these illegal aliens that all you have to do is get into the country and then you can get welfare and you can get food stamps and you can get CHIP and you can get WIC and you can get this and you can get that and you can get this. And they work for cash under the table, so they're getting paid to do a job that an American citizen should be getting paid to do, and they're getting benefits that they provide nothing via taxes to fund. Donald Trump is just the first one to actually say it out loud and put plans in motion to stop it. Unfortunately, these people are going to states where they have things like California or Chicago or Illinois, like the motor voter law. And they have a nice Democratic governor who mandates that they will be given a driver's license and thus registered to vote. So when they show up, they're on the list. They don't have to show ID. They don't have to prove they're a citizen. Nothing. Their name is on the list. They vote. California and Illinois and other blue states are the ones leading the charge against the census change to simply ask if you are a citizen of the U.S. or not, because they all know if we actually get a citizenship count, we will know that California has had far too many votes cast for years and years and years. Their House seats will be taken away from them to represent the citizenship numbers, not all the illegals living in their state as well. We will also be able to say, oh, Los Angeles County has X number of voters of legal age who are American citizens. Why is it that number plus 2 million voted? And we will have rock solid proof of voter fraud. And they know this, and they're scared of it because they know the only way they stay in power is through fraud. This right here, they're afraid of because this will start requiring people to actually qualify for asylum before they're granted that. They don't like the caravan numbers being forced to wait in Mexico until their court date because they can't help them vanish into the woodwork. They can't help them just magically disappear into the cloth of American society so that they're never found when they don't show up for their immigration hearing because they know that their court hearing would go badly. They won't be granted asylum and they'll be told to leave. But if they don't show up and we can't find them, how does that work? They just stick around. And unfortunately, we know a good number of them are MS-13 or other criminals. And it's not until one of them kills someone like Kate Steinle or Corporal Singh, or rapes someone, or otherwise ruins someone's life, that we can finally find out that they're in the country illegally. Unfortunately, when it happens in states like California, the person who murdered an American citizen is acquitted and then helped to sue the federal government for daring to enforce our own laws. It all has to stop. If you would actually listen to the Border Patrol agents and the other officials at the U.S. southern border, and not the Maddow's or Mika's or Morning Joe's or Anderson Cooper's or Jim Acosta's all over the MSM, you'd hear these stories. You'd actually understand why Beto O'Rourke or Jim Acosta got mocked horribly on social media when they posted about how we don't need this wall. I'm here and there's no crime. And there's no crime because of the wall. Acosta, of course, ignored those mocking him for saying, I'm here at the wall and there's nothing going on, so why do we need the wall? And when Sarah Sanders said, well, gee, thanks for making our point for us, of course, she was attacked for having no compassion or for attacking him. This situation needs to stop. It does. We need not only the wall to make sure that they have to come to an authorized border crossing point. Okay, it's not a solid wall. There are doors in it. There are agents stationed along it where you can cross legally. And we need to enforce our laws where, oh, okay, you're going to meet with someone right now, and then if you're given a court date, you'll be given that date and you'll wait in Mexico or your home country until that date. No more of this, okay, well, go about your life, and if we can't find you when your court date comes, I guess we won't be able to find you. None of that BS at all. But, of course, liberals don't like that. Anyway, I've talked about this long enough. Let me know what you think. Remember to stay civil. We don't learn from arguments. We learn from debate. As always, please make sure to like, share, and comment on this video, as well as to subscribe and activate notifications so that you're among the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.